When we think of serial killers, names like Ted Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer come to mind. Their stories haunt documentaries and books, their faces etched into the memory of true crime. But beyond these headlines, there are killers far less known, yet far more terrifying. Men who stalked their victims in silence, leaving trails of horror so disturbing, the world chose to look away. Tonight, we uncover 3 of the most evil serial killers you've probably never heard of, and the chilling legacies they left behind. Our first case takes us back to 1920s Germany, a time of political unrest, economic hardship, and a society recovering from war. Amidst the chaos, one man's crime stood out: Peter Kürten, later nicknamed the Vampire of Düsseldorf. Kürten's story begins long before his murders. His childhood was a nightmare of abuse, poverty, and cruelty. He was beaten, starved, and neglected, his earliest lessons in life learned through violence. By the time he was a teenager, he had already begun torturing animals, a grim warning sign of what was to come. His fascination with blood and death soon grew into darker fantasies, until eventually he acted on them. What made Kürten infamous wasn't just the murders, but the ritualistic nature of his crimes. He would stab his victims, often women or children, and later return to the crime scenes to relive the horror. In some cases, he reportedly drank the blood of his victims, a grotesque act that earned him his chilling nickname. To him, fear itself was intoxicating. He once confessed that he experienced as much pleasure from reading about the terror it caused in newspapers as from the killings themselves. The city of Düsseldorf descended into panic. Parents refused to let their children out after dark, women avoided walking alone, and the police received hundreds of false leads daily. Newspapers debated how much detail they could safely print without igniting hysteria. Yet Kürten thrived on this fear. He wanted the city to tremble with every shadow. When he was finally captured, his confessions shocked, even hardened investigators. He described each crime in vivid, cold detail as though he were reliving them. Psychologists who studied him concluded that Kürten was not insane. He fully understood the nature of his actions. He simply didn't care. At his trial, Kürten chillingly declared, "After my head has been chopped off, will I still be able to hear for at least a moment the sound of my own blood gushing from the stump of my neck? That would be the pleasure to end all pleasures." In 1931, he was executed by guillotine. His legacy remains a reminder of how cruelty can wear the mask of ordinary humanity, hiding in plain sight until it is too late. From Germany, we move to the rugged mountains and valleys of South America. In Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru, a man named Pedro carried out what may be the deadliest series of murders in human history. A story began with violence and rejection. Born to a life of poverty and abuse, he grew up on the streets, surviving by stealing and begging. He harbored a deep hatred for society, and as he matured, that hatred transformed into something monstrous. His victims were not adults who could fight back. He targeted the most vulnerable young girls in poor rural communities, children who trusted strangers because poverty left them with no other choice. He lured them with gifts, food, or promises of safety, then led them into isolated areas where no one could hear their cries. What followed was unspeakable. Admitted that killing became, in his words, a pleasure, a release. When he was finally caught in 1980, the scale of his crimes stunned the world. He was confessed to murdering more than 300 children across 3 countries. Police at first dismissed his claims as impossible. But as mass graves were uncovered and missing persons reports matched his accounts, investigators realized the horrifying truth: López had been telling the truth. Even more disturbing was the outcome of his trial. Despite the magnitude of his crimes, was sentenced to just 16 years in prison in Ecuador. The maximum sentence at the time, he served only 14 before being released. A man who admitted to slaughtering hundreds of children was simply set free. Authorities later lost track of him, with rumors spreading that he returned to Colombia and continued killing. Incredibly, his exact whereabouts remain unknown to this day. The thought that one of the deadliest predators in history might still walk free is enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. Our final story takes us to Indonesia, where faith, superstition, and horror collide in the tale of Ahmad Suradji. By day, Suradji was a respected cattle farmer, a man trusted by his neighbors. By night, he called himself a shaman, practicing black magic and offering spiritual advice to those desperate for guidance.
Wow.
But beneath this mask of wisdom and healing lay an unspeakable darkness. Suradji believed he was destined to become a powerful mystic. According to him, his dead father visited him in a dream and commanded him to kill 70 women and drink their saliva in order to gain supernatural strength. Suradji obeyed. Over 2 decades, he lured women who sought his help, often wives, daughters, and mothers desperate for good fortune or protection. He buried them alive in shallow graves, leaving only their heads exposed. He would then drink their saliva as they died slowly in the earth. For years, no one suspected the friendly farmer of such horrors. He was known as a healer, a man people trusted with their secrets and fears. But beneath his fields lay a mass graveyard. When police finally discovered the truth, they unearthed the remains of more than 40 women. Suradji confessed calmly, showing no remorse. In court, he explained that he was merely following the instructions of his dream, convinced that his ritual would grant him ultimate power. His lack of guilt, his chilling calmness, horrified even the judges. In 1997, he was sentenced to death. Over a decade later, in 2008, he was executed by firing squad. Yet to this day, his story remains a reminder of how superstition and evil can intertwine, and how trust can be the very weapon predators use against their victims. 3 killers, 3 continents, 3 stories of unthinkable horror. Peter Kürten, the vampire of Düsseldorf. Pedro, the monster of the Andes. Ahmad Suradji, the black magic killer. Their crimes remind us that evil has no borders, no single culture, no single face. It thrives in poverty, in fear, in superstition. It hides in the shadows of society, waiting for its chance to strike. And perhaps the most terrifying thought is this: while we know their names now, how many more remain in the dark? How many predators walk among us, their stories untold, their crimes waiting to be uncovered? Sometimes the monsters we fear the most aren't the ones we know, but the ones we don't.